Steve Brooks here with the Brooks Law Group. Welcome to Friday's Inside Look by Brooks. Hope everybody had a good week. Hopefully we're going to get some cool weather tomorrow. I am really looking forward to that. In a way, I feel like I've been a little cheated out of my February and January, so I'm looking forward to cool weather. Couple of events coming up for us. We're doing the chili cook-off this weekend in Haines City. And then I believe March 31st, April 1st, we're going to be doing the Cuban Sandwich Festival in Ybor City, which is where our Tampa office is located. That's a huge festival. So come out and see us at the end of the month. So I was sitting around talking with some attorneys in the firm, and I was asking them, what is the most common question or pushback you get from clients about what doctor to see after an accident? And a lot of clients are stuck on, well, I want to go to my family doctor. And what they don't understand is their family doctor is probably a general practitioner or an internal medicine doctor. And those guys are great for diagnosing and treating the flu, treating internal things like hepatitis, heart disease, issues with, pulmonary or lungs. But they rarely see traumatic type injuries, which you might suffer in a car accident. The other thing about your regular MD, general practitioner, family practitioner, is most of those individuals are intimidated by the legal system. They don't want to have anything to do with it. They don't want to be called to a deposition. They don't want to go to trial. They don't want to sit in the witness stand and raise their right hand. And the guy that asking the questions, the lawyer, is someone that might sue them at some time for malpractice. So I know all this because my father was an internal medicine doctor. He did not want anything to do with the legal system. If an accident victim came in, he had loyal patients. He loved his patients, but he knew he was not trained and educated in treating traumatic injuries. He was an internal medicine doctor or a family doctor. So the other thing that most family doctors and internal medicine doctors don't do is they don't know the lingo. They don't know how to document the file and the injury. So the reports we get from them are sometimes bare bones and don't really support the true injury that's there. So we do know doctors that are trained to treat acute traumatic type injuries, soft tissue type injuries. Sometimes a good place to start is a chiropractor. I grew up being the son of a doctor. I grew up thinking I didn't have the fondest opinion of chiropractors to start with. But I've grown to really admire their work. They understand soft tissue injury. They understand when it may be more than a soft tissue injury, like a herniated disc. They know when to refer you out for an MRI or a CAT scan. A lot of times we have clients that come to us and they've been in a bad wreck. The property damage was $10,000. The car was totaled. They went to the hospital ER, who you would think would be totally trained in trauma, and they are if it's a broken bone or if you're cut. But if you have a soft tissue injury, the ER is not the place to get a diagnosis. Many times they'll take an x-ray, they'll check for broken bones, and they'll send you home with some Motrin saying, you're okay. What they don't tell you is an x-ray is not going to show a herniated disc, a serious injury to the disc in your spine or neck. So again, chiropractors, orthopedic surgeons, pain management specialists, neurosurgeons, neurologists, those are all specialties that are trained and accustomed to seeing traumatic type injuries to the spine and they understand soft tissue injuries and how they affect your daily life. So, we kind of know the doctors that understand that, and we know the doctors that don't understand that and don't want to be involved in any kind of case that might involve having to go to court. So obviously we prefer that you go to a doctor that understands the system, understands that they may have to go to court and testify on your behalf, understands the acuteness of soft tissue injury and how it can affect you. So if you come to us and you have a question about what doctor to go to, we can give you a list of doctors that we've worked with in the past that we know understand and how the legal and the medical system kind of interface and work together. And we'll be glad to share that with you, but it's really, really important to establish early on with a treater who understands soft tissue injury, understands more than just broken bones and cuts, because your internal injuries many times are not going to show up on an x-ray. You may look fine on an x-ray, you may look fine to be standing there, but have a serious herniated disc that nobody's going to tell you about or diagnose if you don't go to the right doctor. So that's some of the most common misconception or misperception that people have about when they push back and say, no, I don't want to go to a new doctor that I don't know. I want to go to my family doctor. There's actually some clinics in the areas that we practice, big multi-specialty clinics, that if you go in there and tell them you're in an auto accident, and even though that's been your family doctor for 20 years, they won't see you because they're telling you up front, I don't want to have anything to do with interrupting my schedule to go to a deposition or go to court. I don't want to play in that arena. And so they just refuse absolutely to do that kind of work. And that's okay. That's up to them. They may not have the personality that is, can kind of understand the pressures that go along with being a doctor in that arena. But you definitely want to get somebody that is competent medically and is not afraid to interface with the legal system. So I hope that helps you understand about what you might do when you reach out for a physician or doctor after you've been in an accident. Let's hope you're never in an accident, but if you are, you know what to do. So if we can ever help you, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. My email address is steve@brookslawgroup.com. That's steve@brookslawgroup.com. We're an all injuries law firm practicing throughout the state of Florida with offices in Tampa, Winter Haven, Auburndale, and Winter Haven. And look forward to serving you. Thanks for joining me today. And we'll look forward to seeing you next Friday at 3 o'clock. Thanks.